Namaskar and welcome to this exciting episode of Sattology Debunking Mythology. Sat means truth, logos means a study or science, is a Latin word, and Sattology means the study of truth or science of truth. On the opposite, mythology. Myth is a Sanskrit root word. In Sanskrit, it's called dhatu, which means a lie, fake, or a imagination. The word and logos combined with logos, it becomes a study of imagination. This word was coined by Max Muller Macaulay to denigrate Indian culture and civilization. And so we have this word mythology being used extensively by different people. It doesn't mean history at all. It means a science or study of fake imagination. That means it was never real. Ramayana, Mahabharata, Vedic scriptures are all real. It has been proved on our show many times. Astronomical dating, archaeological proofs, many proofs we had. So we call it Sattology. Today I have a very, very special guest. And he was a Indian civil police officer, and also in India is called civil servant, IPS. But for Americans, it will be like a high-ranking police officer. And he is also the pro-chancellor of Indira Gandhi University in New Delhi. And he's also a fellow, visiting fellow. But his hobby is very unique, which is, we all love that. His hobby is to record the places of interest where he was born and he was lived, and to record them for all of us. In the last program, you loved his show where he showed you the Gaya, and it was a fabulous video presentation. And today we are talking about Bodh Gaya, which is of interest to all the Asian countries, Buddhist countries. So without delay, let us welcome Dr. Uday Sahay to the program. Namaskar, Uday ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for inviting me to the show and giving this platform.
You have so many achievements. I had to shorten it down because there's a limit of time we had. So coming back to your personal hobby is photography, but you're telling a story. In fact, the story which you told me last time, the laddu, the sweet balls, rice balls, which was made in Gaya to be offered to ancestors, then that is phenomenal. And somehow in the culture today, whether it's America or India, people think that all these things are superstitions. What do you say on that?
Well, you see, in India, I have a feeling that it's all a matter of faith. It's all a matter of belief. And to understand that, one needs to take a rational view of the belief. The best way to do that is to visit these places, understand the causation, the cause and effect relationships, the events, and then piece them into a story. Not all stories are myths. Not all myths are stories. So, keeping this in mind, we take you to the city of Enlightenment today. Last time, friends, as you recall, we took a conducted tour of Gaya, which was the older city, which was a city which is known for great death rituals. And there we shared with you that there is a hill where you can visit for your death rituals of your ancestors in case it's a normal death. There's another hill which you can visit if the death has been unnatural. And the third hill is very interesting, where you can in advance transform yourself as a man who is dead, perform the ritual, and come back. So these are the city of death rituals is the city of Gaya. And that is how there is a difference between the city of salvation and city of enlightenment. Salvation is post-death, as we know. Enlightenment is right here. If you're getting a knowledge, which is, yeah, you wanted to say something?
Last rites.
Last rites. and last rites of your ancestors, primarily, not as much yourself, but the focus is giving respect to the departed souls connected to you by karma. They are your parents, they are your grandparents, and so on. So that was the city of Gaya. And when you hit this city, as I mentioned last time, you come across a huge signboard. It says, "You are welcome to the city of salvation and enlightenment." City of salvation is the city of Gaya, and city of enlightenment is the city of Bodh Gaya.
So,
So it becomes a twin city, so to say, separated by about 10 to 12 kilometers, but two worlds. One is the world of Hinduism, the other is the world of Buddhism. Yeah, you had some
so
point.
the Buddha. Many few people know the Buddha was born in Lumbini, which is Kikateshu. It was also part of Magad Desh before. In Sanskrit, it's called Kikateshu, and it was born in Lumbini, which is today in Nepal. But
Correct.
he attained enlightenment, or he perfected, or he showed the path in Gaya, Bodh Gaya. That's what we're talking. And so between Lumbini and Bodh Gaya, it's around 400 kilometers distance now, or 500,
Yeah, roughly about that.
400 or
Roughly
500
about
kilometer
that.
distance.
Yeah.
And so this is a place. So most of people do not know that both the places are India and Nepal. We share transparent borders. It's the same culture. And when I met Dalai Lama in San Diego many years back, he had visiting here. One thing he said in the lectures, he said, "You Hindus are our gurus," and he said that the Hindus are the origin of Buddhism. It's a very controversial statement, but Dalai Lama said it, so I can quote it. So, but anyway, there is a lot of synchronity between the two faiths. Am I right, Dr. Uday?
Absolutely. I'll explain also while we talk. Yeah.
Yes. So, so you can tell us like more about Bodh Gaya, how it looks, and through your camera lenses. I think you have captured the images. I think.
Surely. Surely. So let me start with giving you a little bigger picture,
Uh-huh.
because you have mentioned about Lumbini. Whether it was Lumbini where he was technically born
Uh-huh.
under a sal tree, whether it is Kapilavastu, which is in India in Uttar Pradesh, whether it was Gaya, which where he got enlightenment, or whether it was Kushinagar where he died.
Mm.
This, if you connect these dots, by and large, they all come in what we call Greater India.
Mm.
Greater India was not the one that you see today.
Correct.
Greater India was much far beyond the Indian current territory.
That's right.
And therefore, what connected these places is the world of faith,
Mm.
is the world of belief, is the world of, common stories, which hugely connected people. I give you some example. There is one of the most sacred mountains in the world called Kailash. Now, Kailash technically is in the Western Tibet today, but for every Hindu, as you understand, there is a burning desire to visit Kailash. Many of them visit. I was lucky one to do that in 1998, but most of them, their wish never come true. Similarly, recently, if you would have kept a sharp watch on the news happening during West Bengal elections, you would have found that the Prime Minister of India visited Bangladesh. And of all places, after his official meetings, etc., he visited a Shakti Peeth. Now, Shakti Peeth is a beautiful story of Lord Shiva. Kailash is the place where he stays, and Shakti Peeths are those where the parts of Sati's body fell while Shiva was doing the Tandav dance with the dead body of his wife. And to placate that anger, it was Vishnu who cut the dead body into 52 parts, and it is believed that these bodies fell in different parts of India, Nepal, China, and even Pakistan. So, therefore, uh, if you look at the current Indian map, you would get a little confused that how come these places are called Hindu pilgrimages. Technically, they are not in India.
No, you
But
better.
as you rightly mentioned, sir, Lumbini is also one of such places. It was the foothills of the
Himalayas.
Himalayas,
Himalayas.
and
No, you,
that time, yeah,
you said very good point because people do not understand that 1919, the British government whimsically cut Afghanistan off through Durand Line. In
yeah,
1947, they cut Bangladesh and Pakistan out through McMahon Line or whatever the eastern border of Pakistan. The China line, the Tibet line was made McMahon line, but it was also imaginary line. 1948, Burma was cut off from India, which Burma wanted to join India, and that was also cut off. So this is the new map which is you show of India is much smaller map as the doesn't represent the culture totally,
yeah.
and
So
even is
culturally speaking,
yes.
as you rightly said, sir, if you piece together these places, you get a picture of the greater India. And the greater India is more of an aspirational India where people are connected by stories, by beliefs. So whether it is Kailash, the hotspots of Shiva's abode, or they are Shaktipeeths, the one in Bangladesh where the Prime Minister visited, it is called Jareshwari. And a part of Sati's body is believed to have, had fallen there. Similarly, there is a place in Pakistan called Hinglaj Temple, which is another Shakti Peeth. And there is a place near Karachi, which is another Shakti Peeth. And then all across the country, these bodies have fell and they are connected by a story of Lord Shiva's first wife. Why I explain to you this, it will help you in understanding also the story of Buddha. Buddha was born in a place, sir, which is known as Kapilavastu in Uttar Pradesh of India today. And Kapil Vastu was naturally his father's kingdom, the Kshatriya father's kingdom. They were Hindus by birth. And that time there was a custom that if a lady, a married lady is pregnant, she is supposed to go to her father's place to deliver the child. So from Kapilavastu, along with the royal itinerary, she was walking into a forest which is Lumbini of today, where she had a delivery pain and she catches hold of the branch of a tree, which is a sal tree, and the child was born. And this is a very, very sacred place in Nepal today, you know, raised by Nepalese government, internationally funded and worth visiting. This is the place where Buddha was technically born. Still, they have conserved the place very nicely. There are almost 300 acres of land acquired. So you have monasteries from Hinayana, you have monasteries from Mahayana, you have monasteries from Vajrayana, all three major schools of Buddhism. And these are big monasteries. 5 acres of land each is given to them. And you can see distinct lifestyles. Each monastery is an island of a lifestyle, very distinct to that country, to culture, and not necessarily the same. They are different, distinct, yet connected by a belief called Buddhism, yet connected by stories of Buddha, yet connected by philosophies of Buddha, and so on. So good that we discussed Lumbini. After the delivery, the gentleman comes back to Kapilavastu, his father's place, and he is a different person since beginning, not very lured with the material things of life. He has a metaphysical way of looking at things. And the father is very disturbed because at the time of birth, there is a sage, the astrologer, who says that this guy will become either a big super king or he will become a big sage.
I just want to
So
point out one thing
please carry on.
for the many colleges who have joined. Thank you all for joining, and thank you for hosting. Many of you are hosting the show. The uh, just like Buddhism, Hinduism, these are all cousin faiths. They all have common origins. They all have common parameters, convergence. Where there is Sikhism, there is a unconcerted or unwarranted attempt by the Western academics to hyphenate the all because of the European experience. Like if you look at European experience, the Portuguese are fighting with Spanish all the time, Spanish are fighting with the British, but that's not the case with these faith systems, I would say. Uh, the There is a lot of convergence there, and they all converge on karma and reincarnation and the word dharma. All of them fought for dharma, to protect dharma. So dharma is a word which does come from Vedic literatures, which is mostly followed by all the Hindus, and it is common across all these faiths which are originating. So now, normally nowadays today there is a propaganda in the US campuses that dharma is a Buddhist term, and Hindus acquired it. It's a very laughable thing because dharma is the intrinsic part of actually Hindus. A real name is Sanatan Dharma, and so it is still intrinsic part of it. Udayji, please continue. I just wanted to add that
Yes,
because there is a big confusion there in
wonderful,
that
sir.
regard.
Wonderful, sir.
Yeah.
In fact, therefore, it's important to understand the sequence.
Sequence, yes,
Uh, Buddha's parents were Hindus.
right.
They were Kshatriya born, and still it's a big debate that which class of Kshatriya these guys were, and so on. But fact remains that they were Hindus by
Right.
birth, and gradually he was a very authentic guy.
Yes.
He had his own independent mind. He wanted to seek truth through his own experience and not live by a given truth. So there are a number of very interesting examples of his life, and you must look at those examples, which will give you an insight about man being absolutely independent and creative in his thinking. Anyway, I'm not going into that because that will take a lot of time. But as he grows up, the father gets very worried that this guy doesn't behave like a prince, and his interest doesn't lie in the temporal matters. And primarily, all the time, he's talking about the otherworldly things. So he gets worried, and he marries off his son to a beautiful woman with whom he starts staying. Is given a wonderful place to live. In the palace, they have all the facilities of life, etc. And for some time, Prince is also lost with a beautiful wife for some time. They are blessed with a son. And then his original calling starts haunting him again. One fine morning, he felt that no, his life is not just this. The calling is much bigger. So he leaves his house. The child is left behind, the wife is left behind, and one of the criticisms of against Buddha which people raise, that he was insensitive to the wife because he left when they were sleeping. Anyway, so he leaves with a very, very uh, loyal horse and also an attendant. This is a place in Uttar Pradesh. They walk and they walk and they walk for almost about 200 to 250 kilometers until they reach a big river. And he asks his attendant that our court traveling is over. You can take this horse and go back. And the horse would not budge. The horse was so attached to Buddha. Anyway, and it is said that later on, the horse was dragged back to the capital by the attendant, but he on his own again came back and died on the same spot where he left Buddha. And there was a stupa raised in the memory of the horse. That's a separate story. So, this is the point where Buddha enters into another state of today, which is presently called Bihar, crossing the river. And therefore, soon after you cross this river, they have raised a stupa, which is the highest Buddhist stupa in the world today. And you will get to see once you visit there. That's the highest Buddhist stupa in the world, where he landed up after crossing the river. Then he takes his own route and he comes across these Hindu gurus. And the guru, because he was a very intelligent guy, highly energetic, all the time he would have questions and he would come out with solutions, etc. So the gurus were invariably very impressed with him. They would share whatever knowledge they had, and then they would start coaxing him to stay back.
So one
But
of the
he was, yeah.
so in the Bhagavad Puran, for people who would like to know, and Udayji will show some pictures. He's a very good photographer. And just tell us, Udayji, like what kind of camera you use?
Well, I have, sir, Nikon
Okay.
one. Then I also use iPhone of a higher end, and that's all.
No, but beautiful pictures, beautiful. I think the more because you published a whole book on that, so we can see the
Three
high
books.
quality books on that with the camera. This is beautiful pictures you have taken. Now, just for the viewers' sake, I'll quote one quotation from Puran. It says, it's in Bhagavad Puran 1.3.24. The similar verse is in other Puran also. Tatha kalau sampravritte samohaya suradusham buddho namnam anjana sutah kikateshu bhavishyati. So in the Puran, the regions, the entire Magad is called Kikat Desh, and that's the ancient name. And even today, it is called, like, if you go to any pujari in Gaya, he's going to take that name. He's not going to take Magad. He's going to take Kikateshu,
Yes.
and that's the way it is referred to. And it's a huge region. And like Udayji said, it's not just India. It is parts of Tibet, parts of Nepal, and goes right down until today's Andhra Pradesh. It is a huge region as per Puran and as per other places. And it is part of the Aryavrat, so eastern part of Aryavrat, the land of the Aryas. Again, it shows that the Aryas are from that area. And also, the after the Mahabharat war, the lineage of kings which was existing, that is retained only in the Magad region. And the future kings will come from there. I'm recorded on this show, so you can quote me there. The future kings of the world are going to again come from that region, because that's the way Puranas describe. Please continue, Udayji. Just wanted to
Yes,
add
sir.
that Sanskrit quote over there about Buddha's appearance.
So I was talking about two of the initial gurus whom Ashoka met after he left his house, crossed the tree in order to enter into a land, which is the Magad land that you were mentioning. And this part of the land is a beautiful part, but it was completely a thick forest those times. These two gurus were great gurus of their time. He learned a number of skills from them, knowledge from them, wisdom from them. But then the kind of original guy that his quest was insatiable, and he would take their leave and move on. After three, such encounters with great gurus, lot of learning, lot of skills, still he was not very happy, and he thought, the knowledge that I've acquired is not mine. They are somebody else's. I must have something. I must experience something of my own. So after three gurus, he reaches a place which is broadly called Gaya, the peripheral Gaya of today. And I will start my talk from there, because his yatra takes him to Gaya in search of a truth. And that's a very interesting mystery till date. Why, of all places, Buddha was attracted to this part of the world, this part of the land. Now, having reached Gaya, there is a beautiful hill which is known as Dungeshwari Hill. And Dungeshwari Hill, if you climb up today, midway you'll come across a natural cave. This cave is called Mahakal Gufa. Gufa is cave, so Mahakal cave, where he spent a number of months, giving up everything. He stopped eating and he was practicing an extreme lifestyle. And he thought maybe that's the way to, reach, get enlightenment. Days passed, his health became frail, his bones started showing. I will show you how. And he would still not get the peace that he was looking for. Interestingly, beneath the hill, there was a village. And these girls would be called, locally called Kumharin, the pot maker community, their women folk. They would move up the mountain every morning collectively, maybe because of security concerns. So they would walk together up, and while walking together, you require a lot of energy. So you sing, and they would sing folk songs while going up. And by afternoon, they would collect leaves for their cattle's, wood for their own uses, etc. And they would return and sing the same song. The song said that don't stretch the strings of the beautiful musical instrument called veena that far that it breaks. Don't leave it so loose that it stops producing music. That was the first messaging of the Madhyam Marg, or the middle path, which started haunting Buddha's mind. These ladies would pass by the cave every day, come back again down the hills, singing the same song. So he was practicing kind of extremism because of his strong belief that he would find truth out of that by giving up his worldly pleasures, his food, water, everything. That was one approach he was adopting to find truth. And the subliminal messaging, or the subconscious messaging, which was emerging out of these ladies' songs, was lead a middle path, lead a moderate. It was a messaging of moderation. So these two contradictory messaging created a lot of clutter in his mind: the lifestyle of extremism and the messaging of moderation. And he became so restless that he left the cave. He left the cave after some time, after a few days, got out of the cave, and as I told you in the beginning, the cave was in the middle of that hill. Still, the peak was not there. So he climbed up to the peak, and there was a cleft in the mountain under which he sat, and he thought he has reached the right point to get truth. He again started, financing there. And one day, as it happened, there was an earthquake. And the mountain got almost split. And he realized that this is not a good signal from the universe. This is not a good signal from the nature. So this is not the right place, again, he realized, for attaining truth. So he comes down again. And he comes down and down and down, doesn't go to the cave again. He descends the base where you have a river. This is a river which is called Niranjan River even today. It is almost dried up. It was not that dried up that time, because we are talking about 2,500 years roughly, back. That time the river was still a flowing river. He reaches, and he is completely, exhausted. He is like a branch which has been cut off from a tree, lying on the floor. And after some time, a lady emerges. Her name is Sujata. And interestingly, the lady thinks that he is a tree god. He was so beautiful to look at, completely, otherwise exhausted. But his gait was such that she could make out that he's not an ordinary person. And she thought he's a tree god. She goes and brings some, kind of a pudding, rice pudding for him. She is a daughter of the richest milkman in the village. Her father had 300 cows. So milk was no problem. She brings a very good quality milk. And in Buddhism, there are very interesting literature about the way the milk curd was prepared. The saying goes that out of 100 cows, they would, kind of concentrate the milk and then add something more to it, etc., until it becomes a very high quality, nourishing rice milk pudding. She offers that pudding to him, and that was so freshening. That was so freshening that he gets up and he finds this lady. When he finds this lady, the first thing the lady says, "Why, what you have done to yourself, my tree god? Please don't stretch the string of the musical instrument so much that it breaks. Please don't loosen it so much that it stops music." Mind you, there's something called spirit of the age. That was the spirit of the music in that area. Everyone had that music on their lips. So those potter wives, they were singing the same song. Sujata also sang the same song to him. So again, there was a message of moderation and of midlife. This relationship continued for a while until one day Sujata left him high and dry because she had to go somewhere else. And Buddha felt very, very exhausted and he felt very, very alone. He was only left with the bowl in which he used to receive the milk curd from this lady called Sujata. So he puts that bowl in the river and asks the river that show me a way. He takes a vow that if the bowl flows with the river, I will walk that way because that direction goes back to his side of the world. And if it shows a different path, I will follow that. So there are literature to suggest that the bowl first took a usual course and then changed the direction. And almost he followed and reached the other side of the bank. And it was that side of the bank when he reached, he was exhausted. He picked up the bowl, and there was a small boy, cowman's small son, who was waiting with him with some kind of a very rudimentary, seat cover. He said, "Please sit." And he sat. That was a huge tree, and that was the original
Viewers, I think there is a video disconnection from the Udayji's side. But meanwhile, what he's explaining you all these stories from the authenticated literatures, when we say these are the relevant stories which are not mythological in nature, but this is a tradition. So understand one thing, that the traditions and the philosophy both go hand in hand.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, yes. I was filling in when you were a little bit offline. Can you turn your camera the other way, please?
Just a minute.
So I was telling the tradition that these are the stories which you are telling. They're not mythological. They're part of the tradition. So the traditions, the philosophy, the culture go hand in hand. So, the just like, and these are not made up stories. These are the actual historical references. And some people they connect stories with mythology, which is not correct. Because uh, just to let you know for viewers, all Hindus consider Buddha as Vishnu. That's how they consider him. So there is for Buddha, there is a huge respect amongst Hindus. So the Western academics, they try to hyphenate Buddha from Hindus, which is not correct, because in India they have peacefully coexisted. And Buddhists have never, I mean, to some extent, they have some ignorant Buddhists, I'm saying, but majority of the Hindus accept Buddhists, and the Buddhists also have a huge respect for Hindus. That's why Dalai Lama lives very comfortably in India. So please continue where you left off, sir.
Yes, sir. So I
Okay.
think I was talking about Buddha's bowl, the one that he put it in the river. The bowl showed him the way. It diagonally crossed the river. Buddha followed that bowl, that rice bowl. When he reached the other side, he was welcomed by a small boy, given a small mat made of grass, and he sat under that tree. And that tree is the Bodhi tree of today. Tree has changed, but the place was the same. But today, if you go and see, the Bodhi tree is about 1 kilometer from the actual river, because the river has changed the course over a period of time. Under that tree, only Buddha got enlightenment. That experience itself is a very, very interesting one. How, what did he experience that night? There are three parts of the experience. I'm not getting into that, but I would now like to tell you that after having received that experience, authentic, unique experience, he realized that I should not keep this only in my heart and be happy. How do I distribute and my experiences to others? So first, he thought of his friends who had followed him from his father's capital, who deserted him because they thought that he has fallen in love with Sujata, who had met him. And they left because they realized that he's getting too close to Sujata, so they had already gone away. So first he remembered of his friends. So he said they must have gone to Sarnath. He follows them, and finally he reaches Sarnath. The first sermon of Buddha you find when he comes across the same four friends. And that's the first sermon of Buddha at Sarnath, which is near Varanasi. Then he goes back to Kapilavastu, meets his father, meets his son, and then takes his permission to now wander and distribute the fruits of his knowledge to people around. Now, this is Bodh Gaya, where he got enlightenment. Now, Bodh Gaya has some very interesting footprints of Buddha. I told you that out of all places, he decided to come to Gaya. Having come to Gaya, he further moved towards Bodh Gaya of today. It was a village called Uruvela. It is specifically it is called Taradi, and they say it's the place geologically is about 4,500 years old. Of course, Buddha's story is about 2,500 years old. It is well documented, agreed upon by historians and archaeologists. But the village was even older, Uruvela village. In course of time, because of his name getting, he got enlightenment. So they started calling him Buddha, and the place became Bodh Gaya. Now, if you go to Gaya today, the hotspot of Bodh Gaya, sorry, if you go to Bodh Gaya today, the hotspot of Bodh Gaya is a tree called Bodhi tree. I'll show you the glimpse of the tree. This book, when I was doing, this book shows you a monk meditating in front of the temple. One or two photographs I'll show you, which will give you an idea about the place. This is another big 80 feet statue of Lord Buddha, which has been erected in Bodh Gaya itself, an important landmark. In fact, Dalai Lama has written the preface. On the one side, you see Mr. Dalai Lama writing the preface for the book. On the other side, you have a night shot where this Buddhist monk is paying her obeisance to the temple in the night. Now I'll show you some of the landmarks of the place called. We were talking about Dungeshwari Hill. This is not an imaginary place, sir. This is a desolate mountain called Dungeshwari Hill. You can go and visit even today. Very hot and rugged climate, but a very interesting history. Can you see me today, sir? Hello?
Yes, we can see you. We can see. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, there was some disturbance because the camera was shaking. Is it okay?
Yes. Yes.
I'll take you just few more slides. This is called, sir, Mahakal Cave, where Buddha almost got emaciated. You can see the body of Buddha. There is a beautiful granite statue in the same cave where I went and sat. And I has goosebumps because when I started realizing that, my God, that great man sat in the same cave, 8 into 10 feet small cave, 2,500 years ago. I was talking about this cave only, where there was a conflict between two contradictory values of extremism and moderation. Now, this is a place, a village called Bakaror. And even today, the main prasadam or the offering, sacred offering, which is almost a part of daily ritual in the temple. The milk comes from this village only. This is the village where Sujata lived. And this is the place where she actually used to sit with Buddha under a tree. And the village is called Bakror. It's across the Niranjan river, across from the temple side, from the Bodhi tree side. In the deep monsoon, the river would become something like this. It will have some water even today, but otherwise the river has dried up. But in a typical hot season, the river looks like this. And the monks actually cross the river on foot. Can you see this? And that arch that you see is the arch of Bodhi temple. I'll take you there. You have reached the temple almost. This is the set of people sitting around the temple in the close to the temple. And this tree is the Bodhi tree. I'll tell you the story of the Bodhi tree itself, which is very, very interesting. Now you get the front view of the Bodhi temple, Mahabodhi temple. This is the eastern gate of the Mahabodhi temple. These are not paintings. These are actual photographs. So you can understand the documentary value of these photographs. These are the monks who are praying near the Bodhi tree. Platforms are raised for the monks to pray. Now I take you inside the temple. A beautiful, one of the most beautiful face of Buddha I have ever seen. I have visited all places where Buddha went, but nothing to match this. I take you to the sanctum sanctorum of the temple. And they have a custom of changing his robes every day. So twice his robes are changed, very colorful robes brought in from different parts of the world, mostly Buddhist countries, sometime Burma, sometime Thailand, Japan, and so on. You can see the murals on the wall. Thousands and thousands of murals are on the walls of the. And finally, the King Ashoka actually erected a granite wall around this place because this is the exact place where Buddha sat and had the experience of enlightenment. There are very interesting stories about this particular place. You can see a platform, and they maintain it with absolute. Even the tree is maintained by the Forest Research of India, Dehradun, and they have meticulous drill to maintain it, etc. Now, this is the third tree. The first tree was destroyed by a king. The second tree it grew up again. The second king realized that the first king was wrong, so nurtured the tree. And that great king was King Ashoka, the Emperor Ashoka, who tried to spread Buddhism. He became a Buddhist himself, and he spread Buddhism in different parts of India. So much so that he sent his own daughter and son, Mahendra and Sanghamitra, to Sri Lanka with the sapling of the tree. And they went there, so they realized, and that tree was planted in Sri Lanka as well. So when you go to Sri Lanka, you will find a Bodhi tree's baby becoming big tree today. When the tree was cut in the first place, this tree was already planted in Sri Lanka. So in the next attempt, that part of the Sri Lankan tree was brought back and planted here. So what you have seen in the pictures are the trees which came back from Sri Lanka and planted here. And this is the tree which survives today, survives in a big way. Now, one or two more pictures, and then we will change the story. There are 7 sacred sites around the temple. There is a significance of each. After his enlightenment, Buddha spent almost one day each at these sites, looking at the tree itself. Perhaps he realized that he would never come back. So he wanted to internalize the whole experience permanently inside his heart. He kept standing and staring at the tree from different points, and those have become sacred points. There are many interesting stories and incidents that took place around that time. When he was into the meditation phase, it is believed that Mara, one of the demons who tries to distract you, did all kinds of things to distract him. Nothing worked. Those are very, very interesting Buddhist fables and stories that are weaved around Buddha's life. And the 7th sacred place was this, where the story goes that a big serpent actually saved him because he started meditating going in the midst of a pond. So friends, I have shown you the important points in the temple. This temple is called Mahabodhi temple today. This is the temple which has a very high energy. I have been to all 4 places which are the main 4 pilgrimages for Buddhism, because Buddha was the one who went to all these places. I found the energy level of Bodh Gaya to be the best, to be the most positive, to be the most charging. Of course, Lumbini also has a strong positive energy, but that's more of a human creation because such a beautiful backdrop they have created that it looks very, very positive. But this place, Bodh Gaya, inherently looks very positive because you can experience sitting there. It's a different world of, in its own manner. But if you go to Kushinagar, where he died, where he uh, got Mahaparinirvan, what they call that still looks like a city in mourning. You become sad even if you are there for a day or two. That's the vibration of the place. It doesn't give you a great, it, it gives you a little uneasy feeling. Sarnath, of course, is a place where he spread his words first, which is near Varanasi. So that also has a positive energy of its own kind. So these are the four major pilgrimages of Buddhism, original. And then as Buddhist thoughts, you know, went into two different directions, what they call Paravotonmukh, that means towards the mountain, and Sagaronmukh, towards the sea. His thoughts traveled in two directions. When it went to the mountainside, it went to Tibet, it went to Leh, Ladakh, Tibet, China, Japan, etc., etc., from that side. From the seaside, it went to Sri Lanka, went on to Burma, and the entire Southeast Asia that you see today. That's all Buddhist world. So two powerful directions, but then those are the places where Buddha never went. That you should be clear about. Buddha was by and large concentrating in what we call Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, and Nepal. Mostly Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. His major activities were in Bihar, and of course, his father's kingdom was in Uttar Pradesh. So the major footprints, I tried to follow his footsteps, and that's how I'm saying this with certain, amount of confidence that if you visit these places, then you start getting a feeling of what Buddha must have been as a man. He was a very smart man. More than a god, I see him very original in his ideas, and he gives you something which he could do himself. So he always said that what I can do myself, you can also do it. I have certain prescription, so he gave you 8-fold way of arriving at truth. He gave you solutions to suffering, etc., etc. I'm not getting into that. By and large, I'm taking you to these places because they are interesting. Now, friends, having got his enlightenment in Bodh Gaya, the first two guys who were Odia guys from Orissa, they were traders from Orissa. They were the first two persons to meet Buddha, and they became his disciple because they found his narration very, very authentic and truthful. And mind you, these two traders actually went to Burma, and Buddhism traces in Burma today primarily because of the initial linkage of Lord Buddha with these two disciples. From there, he comes to Sarnath, which is near Varanasi, as I told you, goes to his father's place, Kapilavastu, meets his wife, apologizes her, takes her permission, meets his son, and again says that my life is now for others, so I have to move. I have a higher calling. He again comes back to Bihar, and then he becomes a strategist. He thinks how to disseminate my ideas. I have got an idea now. The idea is original. The enlightenment has given me certain perspective, which can be a great thing for the welfare of the mankind. But it is good only if I am able to distribute. So people told him that there's a guy called Gaya Sen, who was the biggest intellectual of Magad. If you are able to tame him or if you're able to convince him, then half of the Magad is yours in terms of acceptance of your ideas. So he comes back to Magad. And this is the first time, and perhaps the last time, he comes to Gaya, not Bodh Gaya. He comes to Gaya. There is a mountain, as I mentioned to you in the last talk, called Brahmayoni Mountain, Brahmayoni Hill. In the middle of the hill, he is supposed to meet this great intellectual called Gaya Kashyap. Gaya Kashyap was intellectually very sound, but an arrogant guy. He never gave any hoots to Buddha's intellectual capability. Buddha could sense that. And though he had learned many of the magic and such skills from some of his Hindu gurus, but he was very reluctant to use them. And he always used to tell his disciples, don't use magic. Because that has its own, it comes back to you and it affects your health, etc. But that's the time where these guys, about 1,000 of them, assembled on the hills, and they were creating almost kind of a law and order situation. So they said, you have called us here. There's no place to sit. They were trying to humiliate him. Buddha realized that they have no place to sit. So he did some magic which he had learned, and these logs would split into small pieces. Now the guys got benches to sit. So the top man called Gaya Kashyap realized that he has impressed other disciples. So he started, talking to him very rudely. And Buddha then used his other skills of reading mind. And he started verbatim narrating what Gaya Kashyap was thinking. And imagine Gaya Kashyap after that realized that he is not an ordinary guy. He fell on his feet, and there was a band of about 1,000 disciples. They come down together. This is the first achievement, solid in terms of team building. They come down, and they come down to a place called Rajgir. And friends, I will explain to you, while he was going, to Gaya, the king of Rajgir wanted him to become his partner in running his empire, because he realized that this guy is not an ordinary guy. He has a royal background and sense of sacrifice, etc., etc. So he had offered him that. Buddha said, my travel is longer. So while he was leaving, the king had requested him that when you attain enlightenment, do come and spend some time with me. Buddha remembered that. With his 1,000 disciples, he comes down to Rajgir. And Rajgir is a unique place. There the king receives him. I have a photograph of the place where he was received by the king. And this is a very, very interesting place. Just take 2 minutes. This village is called Jethian. And this is the place which is still there. You can see, go and see. Buddha was welcomed by the king of Rajgir at this place. And the king of Rajgir gave him 100 acres of land. And that was to become the first headquarter Buddhist, headquarter of Buddhist monastery. This was the place where he used to take bath. This is called Venuvan. They have still preserved the core part of the place. And every day he would take a dip in this pond and go up the hill to a very, very interesting place. And that I must show you. He would come to this platform to do the meditation. So every day after taking dip in that pond, he would climb up the hill. And at this place, it's called Girdh Koot Pahad, Girdh Koot Hill. It's a beautiful spot, greenery all around, very gentle hills. And if you go there, it's very peaceful place. Near to that, there was a cave where he was spending his time. All these places are still intact. If you are adventurous enough, you can go and visit and see how great the place was. Now you get a panoramic view of the place. So the king was so impressed with Buddha that he created this road. This is a 2,500 years road, very gentle slope. And the king would walk up to meet him. After his meditation, they would have kind of a talk and sharing. The king's name was Bimbisar. Friends, we are talking about an age which was 2,500 years ago. All these places are intact, beautifully preserved, beautifully documented. There's no great made up story. You can go and see anytime yourself. From here, he spent some time, but he developed a tradition called Charvate Charvate. Be on the walk, be on the move. And except for the rainy season, all these monks would go on with a bowl in their hand, they would walk. Because Buddha felt if you get stuck at a place, you are surrounded by, your mind gets cluttered. And the greed starts descending into your heart. You get acquisitive. So with a minimal clothes and a bowl in the hand, you would walk and walk and walk. And which a tradition was developed called Charvate, Charvate, Charvate. Any Buddhist would explain to you what Charvate, Charvate is all about. Now, the last, I'm just giving you a little of glimpse of the major high points. From there, his journey took him to another place, which is the oldest republic in the world, called Vaishali. Oldest republic, mind you. And here he comes across and he meets a very interesting woman. Her name was Amrapali. But before reaching there, he reaches what is known. If you can remember, this is Nalanda University. These are all nearby places. This is Nalanda University, the oldest university, the Oxford of that time. This university was constructed during that time. There is a Hunsang Memorial, beautiful Hunsang Memorial. The Hunsang was the Chinese travelers who walked down from China to India. Maybe you can see his photo on one side. Can you see it? This is Hunsang, this is Hunsang Memorial.
Yes, we can see that. Yes.
Yeah. And then finally, Buddha reaches Vaishali. I'll just show you a glimpse of Vaishali. This is a stupa in Vaishali. And it's a very beautiful place, and there's a very interesting story. After he attained his enlightenment, his wife wanted to become a monk. His Mausi, in India we call it Mausi, that means his mother's sister, because mother died soon after giving him birth. So the mother's sister actually raised him. They were very close and attached to her. So mother's sister wanted to become a monk, wife wanted to become a monk. They were pressurizing, sending all kinds of signals, and Buddha would not budge. People would get an impression as if he was anti-woman. And all of you, it's important to understand what was his mind, and then that misimpression would go away. So while he was at Vaishali, All these ladies, they ganged up together, they grouped together, and about 100 of them walked from Kapilavastu, which is about 300 kilometers or more from there, and they walked down barefooted to this place, Vaishali. So they came and they met his disciple Ananda, and they convinced Ananda that you must tell your master that he should make us monk. Ananda was a little uncertain. He said, I can try, I can't give any guarantee. They said, no, I mean, we can also bear suffering. Look, we have walked all the way 200, 300 kilometers. So we have proved our worth and we also should be. So Ananda comes to Buddha. He narrates that all these ladies have come. They are pressurizing him to meet him and they want to become monk. So Buddha, there is a beautiful debate between Buddha and Ananda. And to my mind, this is the first beautiful gender debate in the world. And it removes the impression because Buddha's major concern was the security of women, safety of women. And beautifully, he explains to Ananda that, look, the enemies are outside. We are all the time on the walk in the forest, difficult terrain, etc. But there are also enemies within. If you are not very sure of protecting our own women folk, then it will be very dangerous to take them into the fold. But Ananda was also very persuasive. The debate went on, and eventually Ananda was able to convince him that how and why women should be taken in the monastery as monks. So he created the first, today Narendra Modi is talking about ladies' bathroom in the country, especially in the rural area. Buddha was the first one to create, a separate bath for the ladies. And where it is said that, I'll show you the pond. It is said that the monkeys and the monkeys and the monks put their energy together to create that pond. That pond still exists today. It's a very beautiful place. And I'll show you that photograph so that you get the feeling of what it is broadly. I told you that this is, can you look at the pond? This is the special bath for women. He created toilet for them separately, etc., etc. And ever since, women became a part of Buddha. Now there is an interesting twist in the tale. When he came from Rajgir, he came to Vaishali. There's this lady called Amrapali, the most beautiful woman of the area. Her beauty was talk of the town. The king of the Magad Empire and the king's son both would fall for her. She was so beautiful. But the lady knew that she thought that Buddha also, like any other man, would fall for her. So she meets him with her head high and with that, arrogance of beauty. And Buddha would remain unfazed. So for the first time, she realized that not all men are the same. She writes that I met two kinds of men. Men who would, out of lust, look into my eyes with their intention on, and the other one who would not be able to, look at me because they are so mesmerized. Here is a man who is completely unfazed. So her confidence was shaken. And she is so persuasive that take me into the fold. She tried to bribe him by giving a big gift. She had a huge mango orchard given by these princes who were all his lovers. And she thought by doing all this, he will take Amrapali into the monastery. But mind you, when he succumbed to Ananda's argument, persuasion, he first made his mother, sister, the first disciple. The second disciple was the wife. And the third disciple was this lady, beautiful lady called Amrupali. These are very, very interesting, stories about Buddha, because around these stories you can understand the man. From here, the last, there are a lot of zigzag in the story. I'm not making you confused. The last bit of the story is he becomes old and he realizes that the last moments have come near. So he pressurizes Anand to take him back to Uttar Pradesh. And Ananda says that let's go back to Kapilavastu, his father's place. He says, no, I would like to go to Kushinagar, because he felt in his earlier birth, he was the king there. And it's a place where very poor people live. And he says, I'll get my Nirvana the best there. He goes back, and I'll show you that's the last slide. This is Sarnath, the city of mourning, Kushinagar, where he died finally. This is the Buddha, last moments of Buddha. The one you see in Thailand actually is a copy of this. This is the original. This is his last rest. And after this, they bury him, they burn him, and after the burning, they raise a stupa. And this is the stupa which still exists in Kushinagar. Now, in the beginning, I mentioned to you about Lumbini and Sarnath. You should get a glimpse of those places as well. I told you the mother, while she was going to her parents' place, she gave birth to Buddha en route under a tree. She was holding the branch of the tree. The Buddha was born. So this is this beautiful sculpture. This is the place where he was born, near this pond, and the baby took the first dip in this pond only. It is a beautiful place in Lumbini, Nepal today. You must visit. Very nice place. This is also Lumbini. Monks are all meditating under a tree. Now, this is the Sarnath. I explained to you, if you recall, that after attaining his enlightenment, he thought of his 4 friends who had deserted him. So, chasing them, he reached near Varanasi. The place is called Sarnath. Here, he gave the first sermon to his 4 friends, and his spiritual yatra never stopped after this. So, that was the very, very quick, brief journey of Lord Buddha, which I very meticulously chased for almost 2 years and tried to summarize that in half an hour. I was not very focused, I know, but that's how the yatra was.
A beautiful, beautiful narration of the whole story and how the Nirvana happened. Nirvana is the actual word they use, and this is very famous in America. Nirvana means if you say Nirvana, even though Nirvana is a Sanskrit word, but they say it's connected to Buddha only. But which is see, salvation in the Western academics world is a very shallow word. Salvation means if you believe in one man, and that's salvation. But there is no focus on karma. But in Buddha's life, you see karma as well as dharma. So which makes it more important for people. Thank you, Udayji, for presenting it. And I think it was a long, but people stayed back and loved this presentation which you showed. And do watch it on the YouTube and comment on it. And next time I want to discuss with you about something else, about your other books, and which I'll talk to you offline. And because you have done a lot of work on other areas also.
We can talk of Kumbh, the great world of Mela in India.
Kumbh Mela,
where
yes.
we-
I know where you want me to take to, but I have one some other question.
Sure, sure. I can understand that.
Okay, I want to take you somewhere else, and then we'll come back to Kumbh. So
Surely.
thank you all for joining, and that was Dr. Sahay, and he's also doing his research on media communications. So that's why you can see he's a good communicator in any way. So let us come back again, Udayji, and we'll talk.
Anybody would like to ask something, or technologically that's not possible?
Uh, right now, people must be leaving. So, but there are some
Correct.
questions did come, and I did comment on it. Their questions were, that's why I said we'll have a separate show on different topic.
Surely.
So which is somewhat unrelated to this, but they are asking questions based on they Googled you out and they saw what you have done, and so they're asking questions on their side. It's a fast world as you are speaking, and people are already querying about you. So thank you all for joining, and do comment on the video and let us know your feedback. Thank you. Namaskar.
And if you could send the link, sir, I'll be very, very happy.
Yes, the last video link is already there, and this video will be shortly there.
Yeah.